And we'll move right along to Representative Morgan's bill, just so that she can get to matters of family matters in a timely manner. House Bill 5405. Please proceed, Representative.
Thank you, Chairwoman. This bill is specific to the Central Coventry Fire District, and it would give them a 5-year exemption to a bill that the General Assembly passed in 2019, which mandates overtime for firefighters. The results of that bill are being felt in the district now as they are renegotiating a contract. That bill is forcing a 15 to 20% tax increase on the residents of the Central Coventry Fire District if they stay with the 3-platoon system. And if they go to a 4-platoon system, it will necessitate a 65% tax increase. So the residents of that district are faced with an extraordinarily large tax increase or bankruptcy. They went through a bankruptcy in 2011, which lasted 7 years. Or not quite 7 years, I guess, 5 years. And they are not anxious to go into bankruptcy again. They want the 5 years so that they have some opportunity to plan and make accommodations for this law. And there is a resolution. They just haven't provided it to me yet, but you will be getting a resolution from the board. And there is a handout. I'm not sure why it didn't get to the committee, but it will be provided to you tomorrow.
You will provide enough for the entire committee?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions to the Representative Edwards?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the bill that I sponsored back in 2019. And if you'll look, this bill is actually in the overtime part of our laws.
Can you get into your mic a little bit better, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Sorry, Madam Chair. The reason I introduced this 42-hour limit on regular time for the firefighters was originally for a safety issue. Our firefighters have 20% of their calls at night, and over 50% of the heart attacks and accidents occur during that time. The reason is firefighters are tired, they have lack of sleep. You add in longer shifts, which is basically what's going to happen here in Central Coventry. Longer week schedules, and the numbers only go up. Also, as I learned when I put that bill in, the hours being added and the lengthened shift schedules up to 56 hours, as I believe is going to happen again here in Central Coventry. I see this as a fairness issue as well. Why are firefighters the only ones being exempted from the overtime bill? Why? We revere our firefighters. We tell them all the time what a great job they're doing. They come to our houses when our houses are on fire. They come to our homes when our parents or our children are in a medical emergency. They show up at accidents and save people's lives. And what do we do in turn? We want to take away their right to overtime that every other public employee has. Right now, if a firefighter works 42 hours, they don't get overtime. If they work over 42 hours in a normal work week, they will get overtime for the portion that is over 42 hours. There is not one other public employee in our legislation statewide that is exempted, not one. The reason I put that bill in was there were only 3 communities in the state of Rhode Island at the time, one of them being my own hometown of Tiverton, that had instituted these longer shifts and were putting our firefighters in danger. If Central Coventry has a problem here, there must be alternative issues. There are right now, I believe, 4 fire districts in Coventry. Why don't they look at consolidation? Consolidation would mean that we would have 1 fire department, not having 4 chiefs, not having 4 administrative groups and officers, not having 4 people running the back of house billing. That should be significant savings. Consolidation is always better than having multiple entities doing the same thing, especially in a small town. Coventry is not a big town. Approving this bill for Coventry is going to open up Pandora's box. The firefighters worked long and hard to get their overtime bill that they justly deserve. We passed this bill, you're going to have Middletown, North Kingstown, you're going to probably even have Tiverton up here looking for relief from the firefighters' bill as opposed to looking for options to solve their financial issues. This bill is nothing but a Trojan horse to taking back our firefighters' hard-fought rights. Nothing less. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any question, Representative Morgan?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. The reason that this is allowed is because the federal guidelines for firefighters actually allows 53 hours for a firefighter to work before overtime is paid. These are federal guidelines that were established a long time ago after studying the work schedule of firefighters. There is a lot of downtime. I think we all know that. They actually can sleep, they eat, they do a lot of things. They are there, they are available, you still have to pay them for their availability. But the federal guidelines are 53 hours. The schedule for Central Coventry, which has, by the way, collectively bargained the 3-platoon system. This was not forced upon them. This was agreed to by the union and the fire board. It was collectively bargained, and quite frankly, this bill trampled on collective bargaining. But the schedule that they work is 24 hours on, 24 hours off, 24 hours on, and then 4 days off. That is not a schedule that leads to a lot of fatigue with the firefighters. But as you can see, because there are 2 24-hour periods that they work in a 7-day week, they actually work 48 hours. And by mandating that all the overtime over 42 is at overtime wages, there is a built-in overtime that occurs. This is not a Trojan horse. This is a reality. The taxpayers will pay either a 20 or 65% tax increase or go into bankruptcy. This district needs the time to make the adjustments, to try to come up with an answer. The good representative said, why just this district? Yes, Tiverton and North Kingstown had the same problem, but they were not just a fire district. They were municipalities. And they offloaded this additional cost onto their schools, perhaps, or onto other parts of their budget. A fire district only does fire. That's it. So they don't have another department that can give them some wiggle room. Something else that we should know is pension expenses are going up. Despite the really good market that we had over the last 4 years, the contribution of this district to the pension plan has doubled. And this year, they took an additional hit because of COVID. Fewer people were asking for rescue. So they lost, they didn't get money that they normally would have from rescue. I think people know that when you call rescue, if you have insurance, they bill your insurance for that rescue run. So they didn't get nearly what they normally do. That's where this little fire district is. The people of that district will have a hard time in this atmosphere of coming up with another 20%, and certainly will not be able to afford 65% tax increase. This district needs the 5 years to figure this out. And so I hope that you will help them and help the firefighters there. I think they've been happy with that schedule. Like I said, it's been 24 hours on, 24 off, 24 on, and then 4 days off. I think they've actually been pretty contented with it. But now that this bill is there, it has really forced the district into a very stark financial reality. Thank you.
Have you, Representative, have you spoken to any of those firefighters to certify that what you're saying right now, that they're happy with that
Yeah, they are right now in negotiations over their contracts, so I don't think that would be fair for me to ask them questions, but these are audited financials. So what you're going to get is an audited account of what is happening there.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing from you is that they're happy. But
yes.
Still, if you're asking for data from other matters that has been,
Yeah,
I'm just respectfully.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, morale was good prior to this. It was good.
So you're saying that this has brought down the morale of those firefighters?
I can't say that it's brought down the morale, but it certainly has put a strain on the financial capacity of the district.
So it's two things here.
Yeah.
The district and the firefighters.
Yep.
So you're not speaking on behalf of the firefighters, is what I'm trying to
No,
clearly understand what you're
I'm not
saying.
speaking on behalf of the firefighters.
But you are stating that.
Yeah,
Hello, okay. I'm trying to understand that you're stating that their morale was been low, but that they have been happy for all of this. So I just wanted to know exactly where that data information came from. If in fact, there has been no communication, because you said,
yeah.
they're in negotiation. I just want clarification so that I can't misrepresent what you're presenting.
Yeah, it was reported to me by members of the board that they had a good relationship and the morale was high.
Okay, so-
After they switched to the 3-platoon system. How it is at this moment, I couldn't tell you, and I don't think it would be fair for me to
Members of the
interject.
board is it comprised of all firefighters?
The board?
Or the board, the town's board?
It's a mixture. There are firefighters on the board.
So that was the report from that board, that the morale was much
It was good.
Okay, can we get a letter from them stating that?
I will try, yes.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Representative Casey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you, Representative Morgan, are you a member of the board, or you just?
No, I am not.
Okay, so I just have a quick question. I think, and you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, and please do if I am. I think there was a tax decrease for the fire district within the past 2 years of about 19%, is that correct?
So they went into bankruptcy in 2011.
Right, they were under special master.
And at that point, the reason they went into bankruptcy was because they had a large amount of debt, and they were looking at something like the same, about a 65% tax increase. Over the course of time, there was actually a receiver mandated an increase in the tax rate. And from that mandated increase, then once they came out of receivership, they were able to give the 19% tax decrease. But that was after so there was like a 30% increase, then a 19% decrease. So overall, there has been an increase.
Okay.
And in the last 2 years, 3 years, there have been both all 3 years, or 2 years, I'm not exactly sure, 4% increases, the
Okay.
maximum.
So there is a possibility that, or maybe you can tell me for fact, that prior to any of those increases, there may or may not have been an increase in quite a long time, and things were just out of financial whack, so
Well,
to
they
speak?
were in receivership, so,
Okay. Okay. So my understanding is that the firefighters are currently working this schedule. Is this correct?
correct.
Okay, and they're doing that voluntarily while they're under negotiations for the new contract in good faith?
Yes,
Okay. And my understanding now is they're currently in arbitration because they can't come to an agreement with the fire board?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I'm not on the board, so,
The assumption that everybody is happy, as a firefighter myself, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I wouldn't think that everybody is happy if we've gone to an arbitration at this point. So those are just a few of my comments. I'm sure I will have more as we move forward in the hearing.
Are there any other questions? At this time, I'll call up Representative Nardone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Woman.
I want to say that I'm not going to, for the sake of redundancy, I'm not going to go over what Patricia did with all the numbers in that, but as a resident of Central Fire District and somebody who's walked that district, I have a sound understanding of what the people feel and the feeling that they have and the onerous burden that this is going to be on them. Central Fire District was coming out of the abyss of bankruptcy, and then this mandate was pushed on to them. I don't know what other towns and municipalities need to pay for their fire service, but I know what Central Coventry does, and I know what works for Central Fire District, and this was working. This has a sunset clause on it. We're not asking, I don't believe the ask is to continue this. This is just to keep it going, get us on sound footing, and then proceed from there. It's giving us time to balance out the books, negotiate a new contract, and then work from there. The other thing I want to say, I mean, Rep. Edwards, you had commented about why don't we have one district. That's a good question, if that could be done. There's 4 other districts. You said Coventry was a small town. It's the biggest town east of the Mississippi, up and down, north and south. We have 4 districts because each district knows what works for them. Western Coventry does not want to merge with Central Coventry. Hopkinton doesn't want to merge. Anthony District doesn't want to, they can't come to a consensus on what works in the best interest of them. So this is what we have, and this is what we have to work with. I urge you to support this bill. It gives us footing, it gives us time, and I'm sure there's going to be other members calling in, you know, maligning everything about the whole board and that, but the board has worked hard to get us to where we are now. Let them continue. and get us where we need to be. So with that, I urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Are there any questions to Representative Nardone? I would like to ask a general question, maybe, Representative, you may be able to answer, or I'm open to anyone giving me an answer. Are burdens different in every case? Because I heard you mention that it's a burden to
Yeah,
so are burdens different in each case, or burden is a burden is a burden?
Onerous, burdensome, meaning that if you're already paying...
No. I'm not asking what it is. I know what it is.
Okay.
I'm asking, are burdens different with every circumstance? For example, the minimum wage, is that a burden that one can carry and it's okay, or not carry and it's okay? I'm just trying to understand in the eye of someone who's mentioned about it's a burden to the town to be going through this process right now. You need time to get things right. So is a burden, or is a burden depending on the situation?
Well, I'll take the minimum wage example that you just used. It would be very burdensome on a small business, but it probably wouldn't be burdensome on Walgreens, on Walmart. It's predicated on margins. So I guess there's variances of burden.
But it's not a burden on the person or the family who's struggling.
Are you talking about the
Can I-
minimum wage?
We can leave it. I just wanted to throw out to hear the flavors and the responses that burdens would bring.
Okay.
You know, that's okay. Not a trick question in any way.
I just want to say, it's onerous on the people because they're paying so much right now, and this just adds, more to they have to dig into their pockets a little deeper, they have to work a little harder, and they have to come up with the extra money. So it becomes
Imagine.
onerous on them in that sense.
Imagine.
I don't know if I answered your question or
You
not.
answered my question.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have one caller. Did she call? Mr. Paul Valletta Jr., welcome. Mr. Valletta,
Hi, Chairwoman, how are you?
wonderful, and yourself, good evening.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me speak, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Labor Committee. First, let me address, wasn't going to be that long, but I'd like to, if you give me a little leeway, I'd like to address some of the comments that were made by by Representative Morgan and Nardone on some of the issues, which I think this is an extremely important issue. So first of all, there is no active firefighter that serves on the board. I think a statement was made that there's a firefighter on the board. There is a retired firefighter, not an active firefighter. The 56-hour work week in Central Coventry was not bargained between the union and the board. The 56-hour work week was really forced onto the firefighters the first time Central Coventry filed for bankruptcy, and they had to sit down with the receiver from the bankruptcy, and that's what they had to do. So that was not bargained for, like was said. As far as the merger was talked about. The firefighters are willing to do that tomorrow. That has been a district issue, people not wanting to give up with their fiefdoms. So the firefighters would enter into a merger tomorrow if that would be the best thing. Rep. Nardone said that Central Coventry, or Coventry, was the biggest town east of the Mississippi, I thought he said. Well, that may be true. It is a pretty big place. It's not Mayberry. But these are the kind of give-ups that we've given in the last several years. Central Coventry is a big area. They went from 5 fire stations down to 2 stations and 2 engines. That's what they're running now. And Rep. Morgan said because of COVID, they were doing fewer runs. I think she said there were fewer rescue runs or things like that. I just want the committee to know that this year will probably be the most runs Central Coventry has ever done. So the runs are up. She was asked if they're on the 56-hour schedule. Presently, they are not on the 56-hour schedule. Because of COVID, they are doing 48 straight hours presently. That's what their schedule is. So they came off the 56-hour, and now they're doing 48 hours straight, 2 days straight in the fire station. Let me see just a few. Bear with me. As far as the relationship with the fire board, they don't have a relationship with the majority of the fire board. It's kind of tough to have a relationship with the fire board when the chairman of the fire board publicly likened the Central Coventry firefighters to ISIS because they flew an American flag off the back of their fire truck. So it's kind of hard to have a relationship with someone who accuses you of being a terrorist. Couple of things on, I did expect it. I didn't think she would use it, but she actually used the bankruptcy word. I can tell you that the Central Coventry Fire District is nowhere near bankruptcy. That's their MO. Every time the firefighters' contract is up, they create a financial disaster and say it's bankruptcy. They're not bankrupt. Let me tell you let me read to you what's presently on the Central Coventry Fire Department website. This isn't the union website. This is the district's website. The Central Coventry Fire Department is debt-free. The pension plan is 79% funded. Insurance service office rating has improved. Fiscal year 2018 passed a budget with a 17% tax reduction. That doesn't sound like bankruptcy to me. Now, we could tell you where we could save some money in the administrative costs. I don't think you need a district manager making $120,000 a year to run a $5 million fire district with 30 employees. The fire district manager at $120,000 makes more than any mayor or town manager in the state of Rhode Island. And again, it's a $5 million budget with 30 employees. Monday it was reported at their monthly meeting that they have a rainy day fund of $457,000. That's not too bad in this day and age when you only have a $5 million budget. In the last 3 years, they went out and purchased with cash 2 new fire engines and 2 new rescue vehicles. So I'm not quite sure the bankruptcy word should be used. I really don't know where the 65% tax increase came from, nor the 15 to 20%. I'm thinking that these are the numbers that were given to Rep. Morgan, and I think she should go back and talk to this board because we know the numbers they're giving her, because we presently are in interest arbitration with them. And the number they're using for the big tax increase, everybody knows when you go into interest arbitration, everybody throws both sides throw proposals in, and the number they're using for the 65% tax increase is a culmination of all the proposals. There is no 65% tax increase. As a matter of fact, the firefighters were willing, when they started negotiating in August, the firefighters were willing to extend the contract because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Why get in this mess in the middle of a pandemic? The firefighters were willing to extend the contract, take a nominal raise the last day of the contract. Everything stays in place. They'll stay in the 56-hour work week and get paid by the law. And that would be, we figured it out to be about $250,000 if they were to pay by the law. So that's not a 15 to 20% tax increase. It's not a 65% tax increase. But they are nowhere near bankruptcy, by their own words. So I'll read you what I wanted to say. On April 9th of 2019, the Rhode Island House passed legislation on a vote of 62 to 9 that compensated firefighters for hours worked in excess of their normal hours. Up until a few years ago, Rhode Island firefighters had always worked a 42-hour work shift. Then a new trend started several years ago, and some municipalities and fire districts were forcing their firefighters to work what we as firefighters consider to be dangerous and unhealthy 56-hour work weeks. The compensation piece of the law was secondary to the mandatory additional hours we'd be working. This truly, the genesis of this bill was truly the hours that we were being forced to work. And let me just talk to something about something Representative Morgan said that there's a lot of downtime. Well, you know, when you're in a fire station, you don't sleep. Even when you have that downtime, when you're not going out on runs. And listen, my hope would be that not one fire truck or not one rescue vehicle ever had to leave a firehouse again, because then nobody would need us. No one would be in trouble. But that's not the case. But even downtime in the fire station, you never sleep in the fire station because you're always waiting for the bell to hit. So there really is no downtime in a fire station. So when the law was passed, we showed ample evidence of studies and medical opinions as to the dangers of this shift. We were very humbled and very honored by your support, and I truly mean that. In your vote to say, you know what, they've got a dangerous job, and they've proven to us by these studies that these long work hours are dangerous to them, and they're dangerous to the people we serve. You know, imagine a rescue person being up 36 hours and having to draw a syringe in a third-floor apartment with no lights. You know, I mean, you just don't want to put people in this situation. But we were humbled and we were honored that you was an elected official, and you knew you were going to take some heat, and I'm sure some of you did. I know Rep. Edgeworth did in Tiverton because his own town was in it. But you know what? We showed them. This wasn't us saying these shifts are dangerous, although they listened to us because we live these shifts. I've worked in fire stations 48 hours and that. I know how you feel when that shift is over. It takes you days to recuperate. But we appreciate that you said to us, you know what? You got a dangerous job, and if we can make it a little less dangerous, we're going to do it by passing this legislation for you. But what we built into that law was if there was a collective bargaining agreement in place and you were in the 56-hour work week, if they stayed in place until the contract was over. So Central Coventry should have done what Tiverton and what North Kingstown did. Stop planning, knowing that this was coming. And they didn't do that. And now Tiverton and North Kingstown, they have a plan in place, and they're prepared to go forward. At the time of this change, Central Coventry was in a 5-year deal that was negotiated by the court-appointed administrator and the firefighters. And now we're at the end of that 5-year agreement. So now we go to the MO of the Central Coventry Fire District. The sky's falling down. We're going bankrupt, but they're not bankrupt. And I'll give you an example. The last time they tried to prove this bankruptcy thing, they did all the propaganda that they're putting out now. They've been putting things out to everybody in the district. We're going bankrupt. We're going to have a 65% tax increase. Everything Rep. Morgan said tonight, they've already put that out to all the people. And they did that last time. The contract was up. And then when they got to court, the reason they didn't go into bankruptcy, because when they got to court, you can put all the propaganda stuff you want to put out to the taxpayers, I guess. But when you get to court, you have to prove your case. And they couldn't prove their case. And that's why they didn't go into bankruptcy. So they are not bankrupt. So that's what I wanted to tell you. The firefighters, they sat down with them. As I said, we're willing to extend the contract a year, put this all to rest while we were in the middle of this pandemic. We couldn't get it. They didn't want to do that. We thought we had a verbal agreement with them. Then when it came down to put it in writing, they said, nah, we're not doing that. So now they are in interest arbitration. And when may I add one thing if we're going to be talking about money? The $120,000 district manager, the overseer of this 30-person employee department that gets $120,000, she also has $150,000. Tell me this isn't a conflict. She also has in her contract, besides her six-figure salary, she gets $150 an hour for negotiations and arbitrations to appear at them. We're pretty sure it means prep, but we can't find anything and they won't tell us that. But think of that. The district manager, right? You have an agreement with you have the firefighters saying to you, keep everything in place for a year. And we'll get out of this pandemic and then we'll sit down. they go to interest arbitration. She gets $150 an hour to sit there in interest arbitration, on top of her $120,000 salary. Why would she make any agreement with the firefighters? So it's just getting, it's just getting to the point where they just won't leave these poor people alone. They won't leave these men and women who all they want to do is go to work like every other firefighter and do their job. And I wasn't going to bring the COVID thing up, but the rep did, so I'll bring up the COVID issue. You know, we've been on the front line like a lot of other people. Nurses, doctors, grocery workers, the nursing home people. There are so many unsung heroes, and I'm not calling us heroes. I'm calling those grocery workers, the nursing home people, and those are the unsung heroes. But we're doing our part too. We're expected to do our, we're expected to be part of this. Those people aren't. I just wanted to throw that kudos into them. But you know what? We're showing up. We're doing our job. We're on the front line. We're going into these houses where we know there are COVID positive people. We're going in those houses and taking those people to the hospital. We're sitting in the back of a rescue truck with these people, treating them. And you know what? There's a little something different going on right now that we've never had to deal with. We're bringing this virus home to our family. We've got over 500 firefighters that have been tested positive in the state of Rhode Island. But you know what? That's our job. We'll take that. But there's something's happening we've never had happen before. We're taking this home to our families now. And you know what? You haven't heard one thing from us. We haven't been up there asking you to give us special legislation. We're just doing our job. And I just think this is a complete insult that this fire board, and quite frankly, the two representatives that signed this bill, at this time, during this time, would come before you and ask you to say, all right, listen, you passed a bill, a safety bill for all firefighters on these hours, right? But, hey, do us a favor. Even though these hours we think they cause a hazard to our firefighters, we don't want the Central Coventry, the 30 Central Coventry men and women firefighters, we don't want them to be covered by this safety law. That is such a complete insult. And you know what? I don't know if Rep. Morgan knows the real numbers. If she got them from the fire board and she didn't look into them, then it's not her fault what she's saying tonight. Bankruptcy and 65% tax increases. So maybe we should all look at the numbers and go from there. And I'll answer any questions anybody has. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Stay safe.
Hold on.
I will correct some statements. Mr. Valletta is correct. They are healthy at this point. They were able to sell assets, and that's how they were able to buy those fire engines for cash. And they do have a $474,000 rainy day fund. They're a healthy district right now. But the increase that is envisioned by the union is $2.7 million. That wipes out the one-time rainy day fund, and it would necessitate a 65% tax increase. And at that point, if there is not a 65% tax increase, there is a bankruptcy. And yes, this district did go into bankruptcy before. Hence, they were in receivership for over 5 years. So they did prove that they were insolvent. At no time is a firefighter on this schedule expected to work 36 hours. They work 24 hours on, 24 off, 24 on, and then 4 days off. The federal guidelines, this is the federal guidelines for firefighters, allows 53 hours before overtime is paid. These firefighters work 48. The law you passed mandated 42. That bakes in overtime automatically. So if the taxpayers are not willing to pay 15 to 20% tax increase, even that will lead to a bankruptcy. It will be put to the people of the district. They will make the decision, but they have in their bylaws now a 4% cap on tax increases, annual cap. They have raised to that maximum for at least 2 years, maybe 3, but I'd have to check. So they have been increasing the tax rate. But their bylaws, just like a regular municipality, expects no more than 4%. And that's, I guess I handled some of the misstatements of Mr. Valletta.
I thank you, Representative. Any other questions? Representative Nardone?
May I comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say that nothing that I think myself, and I think I speak for Patricia, Representative Morgan as well, takes away from the hard work the firemen do. Our gripe is not with the firemen. It's got to do with the budget. We took 3 years straight of a 4.5% tax increase. And to say that we're trying to malign the firemen in any way, I think that's what Mr. Valletta indicated. I find that a little insulting. I have nothing but the utmost respect for any fireman, any nurse, doctor, anybody on the front line. This is a tough situation for us. As I indicated to you before, the president of the fire board wanted to call in, but he didn't follow the proper protocol, and it's not allowed, but he will be sending you a letter, an email. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Valletta.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Have a good evening.
You too, thank you.
At this time, I would like to mention Mr. Paul Valletta, Jr. from the Rhode Island State Association was opposed to 5405, and Brian Daniels of the Rhode Island League Cities and Town is opposes 5405 as well, for the record.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
League of Cities and Towns in all likelihood will be in favor of this bill.
Well, it's an error. There will be a correction made with regards to Mr. Daniels.